What if I told you that in the Middle Ages, holy spaces were not always as holy as you imagine? Picture this. You walk into a medieval church expecting silence, incense, and prayer, and instead you're greeted by the bleating of goats, the scratching of chickens, and the low grunt of a pig rooting in the dirt floor. This isn't fiction. For centuries, animals were kept inside churches, mingling with worshippers, and the reasons behind this strange practice will make you question everything you think you know about medieval life. Before we uncover this forbidden truth, hit subscribe right now, because these are the kinds of stories you were never meant to hear, the ones scrubbed out of the official chronicles. And if you've ever wondered how the sacred and the profane could mix so closely, drop a comment with what animal you'd least like to sit next to in church, and let's see what the community thinks. Imagine it is the year 1310. You step into a stone church in a small English village. The door creaks shut behind you, but instead of being surrounded only by flickering candles and monks chanting psalms, you hear the clucking of hens. They are not just wandering by accidents. Some of them roost in the rafters. Near the altar, a stray dog curls up to nap. In the corner, a villager ties a goat to a post, leaving it there during Mass. The smell of hay and manure mixes with incense. Why? Because for medieval people, churches were not just houses of God, they were communal spaces, central to life, and sometimes even treated like barns. But this is not just about practicality. There was superstition, ritual, and even conspiracy behind it. Some churches allowed animals in because they were believed to carry symbolic meaning. Roosters were connected to resurrection, cats to protection from demons, and donkeys to humility. Yet these symbolic reasons blurred into strange practices. In some towns, animals were led into the church for blessings. In others, they were punished like people. Medieval records show pigs put on trial for crimes and sometimes locked in churchyards, as if God himself was their judge. One famous case in Falaise, France, in 1386, tells of a pig tried for killing a child, convicted, and then dressed in human clothing before being executed outside the church. And while this was punishment, it shows the strange intersection between animal life and holy ritual. Archaeology adds more evidence. Excavations of old church floors in rural Europe have revealed layers of straw mixed with dung, suggesting that animals were indeed kept inside, not just once, but repeatedly, even regularly. This wasn't just a one-off accident. It was part of village life. In places where barns were unsafe or non-existent, the warm stone walls of the church offered protection for livestock at night. Imagine cows lowing beneath the same roof as sermons were spoken. The sacred mixed with survival. But the truth goes deeper, because the church hierarchy hated this practice. Bishops issued repeated decrees forbidding animals in churches. One 12th century synod declared that beasts shall not tread where the Lord is worshipped, and yet the people ignored them. Why? Because villagers believed that keeping animals near sacred relics or altars offered protection. Chickens near the altar meant better egg-laying. Sheep brought into churchyards before shearing were said to give softer wool. Pigs tethered near relics were believed to grow stronger and fatter. The sacred wasn't just for prayer, it was for survival. This strange mixing of holy and practical life became so widespread that even priests sometimes looked the other way. In one case, recorded in a German manuscript from the 14th century, a priest complained that villagers refused to attend Mass unless allowed to bring their chickens with them because they feared theft. Another letter, written by an abbot in Italy, describes the uproar of beasts during sermons, yet admits he tolerated it because otherwise the villagers would stop coming altogether. Imagine preaching about sin and salvation while a goat bleated in the background. And yet, beneath this oddity lies a darker truth. Some historians argue that the Church deliberately erased or minimized these stories because they blurred the line between sacred and profane, between holy ritual and peasant survival. To admit that animals were kept in churches would tarnish the image of medieval piety. That is why many chronicles skip over these details, mentioning them only in passing, as if embarrassed. But the evidence survives in fragments in archaeology, in parish records, in scattered complaints from bishops. The symbolism went even further. In some villages, animals were part of festival rituals inside churches. During the Feast of Fools, donkeys were led into churches, even up to the altar, to symbolize the donkey that carried Mary and the Christ child. Parishioners would bray like donkeys in mockery, blending sacred play with shocking irreverence. Church councils condemned this blasphemy, but it persisted for centuries. Why would such practices survive unless they had deeper meaning? Some suggest it was a hidden protest by peasants against the power of the Church, a way to mock authority under the guise of tradition. But let's not forget the darker, practical side disease. By keeping animals inside churches, medieval people unknowingly increased the spread of parasites and infections. Fleas from pigs and dogs carried plague. Lice from sheep and goats thrived in the communal warmth of villagers and livestock crammed together. Some physicians of the time even warned against bringing beasts into holy places, claiming the air became corrupted. Yet their voices were ignored, silenced, or dismissed. When the Black Death swept through Europe, could the mingling of animals and humans in sacred spaces have worsened its spread? It's a chilling thought, but one historians rarely discuss. And then there is conspiracy. Some whispers suggest that certain banned or heretical groups, like the Cathars, were accused of profaning churches by deliberately bringing animals inside, not as survival, but as ritual mockery. The Inquisition's records mention accusations of turning churches into stables, though whether this was true or simply propaganda is unknown. Could it be that some stories of animals in churches were exaggerated to smear heretical groups, making them seem unholy? Or could it be that the Church erased most examples except when it could weaponize them? Either way, the truth lies buried between fact and silence. Fast forward to today, and the idea seems absurd, impossible even. Yet medieval villagers lived in a world where the sacred and mundane were not separate. A church was not just a holy space, it was the heart of the community. It was a gathering hall, a meeting place, a shelter, and sometimes even a barn. The animals inside were not intrusions, they were part of life itself. So why was this story buried? Why are we only now piecing it together from fragments? Because official history prefers the polished version. Gleaming cathedrals, solemn priests, devout peasants, not chickens roosting above the altar, not goats bleating during Mass. Not the raw truth that survival sometimes mattered more than sanctity. And that is why this story matters. It is not just trivia about animals in churches. It reveals how medieval life blurred boundaries, how survival dictated behavior, how official authority was often ignored, and how truth was later censored. It shows us that history is messy, alive, and far stranger than we were ever told. So, the next time you walk into a quiet, polished church, imagine the scene centuries ago. Imagine the candlelight flickering across straw-strewn floors. Imagine the smell of incense mixed with manure. Imagine a goat tugging at its rope while a priest preached. That was the medieval world, raw, strange, and unforgettable. And it is a world whose secrets still whisper to us, if we are willing to listen. Before you go, remember this: history is never what it seems. The strangest truths are often the ones erased. So hit subscribe, drop a comment with what animal you would never want to sit next to in church, and share this video to make sure these buried stories are never silenced again.